Then the mics, they do clip on, but the sound isn't as great, so I just kind of like hold it nearby.
Okay.
Just be aware of the button on the back. It was
This.
like to give that warning back bottom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the power
So
button.
yeah, just don't turn that off, otherwise
Okay.
we'll be good.
Okay, cool.
All right. We ready? You good?
Yeah. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but.
We're just gonna chat.
Okay.
Nothing too deep. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of InModeration. This week, I have my friend Ethan with me. So, a little backstory on how Ethan and I met. We both work, well, Ethan still works there. I don't work there anymore, at UREC, our rec center, which I've talked about before on here. We were both fitness instructors, which is how we met. There was about 20 of us when I worked there. So we all got pretty close, see each other around the gym and stuff. And we've just become good friends. So, Ethan, welcome. Thank you for being
Yeah,
here.
thank you for having me.
Of course. So, before we jump in, give us a little rundown of like who you are, what you're doing, and like what's up with your life right now.
Yeah, so I'm Ethan. I'm about halfway through my senior year here at JMU. It's my third year, but I came into JMU with a bunch of credits from high school, so I'm graduating a year early. So that's simultaneously exciting and scary at the same time. I'm a psychology major. Right now, I'm not really planning on doing anything with that right out of college, but I'm joining the Army when I graduate, which is something I gotta get on top of.
That's cool.
Just a lot of stuff happening at once. Yeah, I'm big into the gym. That's how we met. At UREC, I'm not a fitness instructor anymore. I'm an operations supervisor there, which is a lot of fun, but I really do miss the instructing because it's a ton of fun to be down there. And I just get to like scream at the top of my lungs for 45 minutes straight. So
it's like having a real life boot camp instructor when Ethan's around.
That's what people have said. Yeah. I've had people just take a single class with me and they're like, "You're going into the military, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
What gave it away?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
so psychology, I didn't know that was your major, or maybe I did, but like I forgot. What made you want to do that?
Let's go back a little further.
Okay.
So back in high school, I was in a governor's school program, Mountain Vista Governor's School, and it was at Lord Fairfax Community College. Now that's Laurel Ridge Community College, but it was several surrounding counties, and a bunch of kids from different high schools in the counties would kind of come to the community college, and we would take classes that we got college credit for. The coursework was obviously a little bit harder, but it was a lot of STEM stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There were two tracks, physics and biology. I was on the physics track, and there was a very long time in high school where I sort of wanted to be an electrical engineer, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. It was kind of like what I felt like everyone expected me to do, what I thought I was supposed to do since I was in this STEM track. And then my senior year of high school, I was sitting in physics 2, and I had been paying attention. And there was a point in the class where I was like, I have no idea what's going on. And that was the moment I decided that I was not doing anything, any sort of hardcore STEM related stuff. But I thought psychology was interesting. Just all the years of introspection and thinking and being by myself. I thought it was really cool. Really glad I did it. Finally getting into all my major classes, and they're very, very interesting. And even though I'm not doing anything immediately with the degree after I graduate, I'm definitely considering a grad program somewhere down the line.
Yeah,
which the military will pay for.
Right, huge.
So, yeah.
What made you want to go into the military? Has that always been something you wanted to do?
Yes and no. My dad works in law enforcement, and so it's always like the law enforcement military vibe I've kind of grown up with. And it was always something I thought was cool. After I abandoned the electrical engineering thing, my goal was to be an FBI agent. And special agents in the FBI, they're still difficult to do. They still have to be very physically fit, but it takes a little more schooling. And right out of high school, college was just kind of the obvious route for that. But I don't know how much you actually know about this, but I was I weighed 333 pounds my senior year of high school.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you had a big weight loss journey, but like,
That's a pretty big number.
yeah, wow.
And so, being a special agent in the FBI is no joke. And so I was like, I've got to change. I've got to do something. There's all these, high intensity things high stress things I want to do when I grow up.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even get the job if I'm not physically fit. So that's kind of where the fitness journey finally stuck and it began. And then last summer, I was at home and I was like working 40 hours a week or something. And one night I think I had finally broken 240. So I was down below 240 at that point in the summer.
That's amazing.
And I was like, I'm really like a lot further along than I thought I was going to be.
Yeah.
I still have like 2 whole years of college left. I'm really far along, and I got to admit some of the recruiting stuff for the Army kind of sucked me in.
Yeah.
And I decided that I was gonna join the Army, and my training it picked up actually. Now I think at my lowest I was a little below 200. Right now I'm hovering between 210 and 215, but I feel like great. And
that's super impressive.
Yeah, and I still have.
Proud.
Thank
I'm proud
you,
of you
thank
for
you,
that. That's
thank you
awesome.
very much.
Of course.
It feels really good to have clothes that fit me.
Right.
That's something that not a lot of people think. It's
Yeah.
It's not just about kind of being slow and being out of breath going up the stairs. It's like you never feel good in anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like just the other week, I finally got like pants that were the right size.
It's huge.
It really
it's so hard to find pants that fit.
It's crazy, but yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm still training to go in the Army. Talking to a recruiter soon. But even a year later, after I've made that choice, it still hasn't really waned. Like my motivation for that. So it's exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of your weight loss journey, like when you made this decision that you wanted to do this for yourself and like care for your health more, how'd you start that whole process? Like what did it take mentally and physically?
There's no one thing. I can tell you like a defining moment.
Yeah.
But
please do.
all throughout my childhood, I was a bigger kid. People would call me husky and try to spare my feelings, but I knew what it meant. I was a big kid. I was always a lineman playing football. And then just in the later years of high school, there were some mental health aspects that kind of played into it, but I just kept gaining weight and I always wanted to lose it. And, now that I actually have lost the weight and, I can look back on how I felt before I started the journey and, I can see other people who are struggling to start their journey. It helps a lot to understand, that mentality. And so you want to start so bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know that where you're at is not where you want to be. Maybe it's not healthy for you, depending on, how big you are. That you don't feel good. Maybe in my case, you can't do the profession that you so desperately want to do, but there's just something in your head that won't let you do it, that won't kickstart that journey. And my brother, he's 2 years older than me. He had a pretty big weight loss story as well. He didn't get quite as big as I was, but he lost, I want to say around 70 pounds as well. So he had done it before me. Right. I watched him do it.
So you knew right there that it was possible.
I knew it was possible. Yeah. And he had always, for years, he had encouraged me, like, you can do this. He'd give me little tips and tricks. And, with everyone, you can give them as many tips and tricks and you can give as much advice as you want. But until they're ready and until they want it, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
And so that day, I remember very, very distinctly, it was April of my senior year in high school. And I had avoided the scale for like over a year. I hadn't stepped on a scale, which is crazy. And last time I had stepped on the scale, I was 280 pounds, which I wasn't happy about. But again, I had avoided it for a year. And I stepped on the scale and I saw 333 and I was mortified. I had no idea how I had, let it go on for so long. And, I've always, being that big isn't just like you overeat every now and then. It's an eating disorder, and it's a recurring thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget that feeling of looking in the mirror and like, I'm embarrassed, even though there's nobody around. I'm so unbelievably embarrassed, and like my face is red, and I'm looking at myself, and it's time to start.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't wait until the next day. I started that very day. I got like my fitness pal, and I started talking to my brother, and I kind of made a loose like workout plan. And that day forward, I was, going to the gym regularly, and for about until December, it was pretty on and off.
Mm-hmm.
I had like the summer things fell off a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but by the time December came around, I was like 30 or 40 pounds down. My lifting and my eating were still. Everything good?
Yeah, wait. So sorry.
You're fine.
All right. All right. Brief intermission, but we're back.
Are we back? Okay, we're back. Yeah, my eating and my exercise were kind of inconsistent. And so December of my freshman year in high school,
Mm-hmm.
the winter break between semesters, is when I really locked in. And since then, it's been very consistent. And I'm not super focused on weight loss anymore. It's really about getting stronger, getting faster, learning how to eat in a way that's good for the rest of my life. I'm not trying to necessarily diet anymore. I'm trying to find something that's sustainable, and just making progress in whatever ways are gonna get me closer to that goal of being in the Army right now. So.
Yeah. So you mentioned learning, and I think that's a huge part of like any transformation that somebody wants to go through, because you start with really nothing. You start with knowing what you want, but like having no real idea of like how to get there. How did your relationship with like food change, and like how did you learn about doing all this stuff in a way that's like healthy?
Like, do you mean in the realm of exercise and eating, just kind
Yep.
of being healthier in general?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my brother was definitely one of my biggest resource by far. He had already done it before me.
Mm-hmm.
He knew everything. He was really, really entrenched in the realm of weightlifting, and he had been eating. Everyone when you look up anything about weight loss, it's like eat a lot of low calorie dense foods. That's like the primary thing you got to do. And so that's what he told me, and he was giving me certain kinds of foods that are less calorie dense, and helping me find like a good calorie deficit to be in. And anyone who started a weight loss journey knows that for a while you're not eating enough. I didn't eat enough. Most people don't.
Mm-hmm. It's like one extreme to the other.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah. And people don't understand that they can eat a lot more than, like, when you're exercising regularly, you can eat a lot more than you think you can.
Totally.
No,
when I realized that, I was like, give me all the bread.
No, seriously. Like back in March, I kind of upped the intensity of my training.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, I'm so sick of eating in a deficit. And so I started eating what I thought was going to be my maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
I was eating 3,300 calories a day, and it ended up being an aggressive cut.
Wow.
Which was bonkers to me.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a lot of calories.
Yeah, but I was easily in like a 400, 500 deficit a day. It was outrageous. But either way, so back to learning and stuff. And then with lifting, it was a little more complicated because, between individuals, there's a little more nuance to lifting, and, volume versus frequency. How often a week should I be doing it? I was learning about different exercises, learning about form, but none of that really was the difficult part. The difficult part was actually going into the gym by myself, and just doing these weights that like seemed like nothing compared to everyone else. I think I started out only being able to shoulder press like 25-pound dumbbells for like maybe a few sets of 8,
mm-hmm.
which I was 18 years old, or 18 or 19 years old. I was like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. But for whatever reason, and again, there's a lot of people who can probably sympathize with this. We just kept going.
Yeah.
And you just, next time, try and do 2 more reps per set. Next time, let's start pushing 30. And the newbie gains started to kick in, and I started getting more confident, and now I can like comfortably press like 70-pound dumbbells, which is very, very cool looking back on.
It is cool.
When I started. Yeah. And it really is great, and I'm very glad that I stuck with it, and I really can't thank my brother enough, because without having that role model that had done it first, especially my immediate family member, it definitely wouldn't have been as easy, and I don't even know if it would have happened to begin with. So
yeah, that just goes to show like how important it is to like surround yourself with people who want to see you succeed and you feel good too, because it's huge. Like, it is really hard to get started. I remember when I first started going to the gym, I felt the same way about like barely being able to lift anything.
Yeah.
And one of the things that made me like chill out was reminding myself that like everyone starts somewhere, like everyone's a beginner at some point. So like, was there something for you that kept you like going to the gym, aside from your goal of your job and your career in the future? Is there something that like made you keep showing up?
Nothing specific that I can remember. I do know that, little bits of motivation here and there were afforded to me by my friends, and something that did help was I made a private Snapchat story to kind of record my progression to my friends. I didn't add anybody on it that didn't want to be on it, because sometimes people will add me to stories and I'm like, I don't want to be on this thing. But I asked people like, hey, do you want to be on it? They were like, yeah. And then even now, what's it been? It's been like 2 years, a little over 2 years since I started that. It's the same group of people, and those 18 people, or I think it's 16 people. Those 16 people have seen me from the very beginning of my journey to now. And they're the only people that really, really know exactly where I started and every little bit of progress that's been made.
Yeah.
And I don't post as much to it anymore, just because my goals have changed quite a bit. But that definitely helped. And, people would message me as they saw progress, and they'd be like, I'm noticing you're slimming down. Like, your shoulders are getting pretty big. The cut's going to go insane.
That's
I was
awesome.
like, yeah. I like to joke that I was on an 18-year bulk.
That's a good way to look at it. Honestly.
Yeah. Now that you asked that, the private story definitely helped for accountability and motivation.
Huge. That's actually why I created like my Instagram. I created it probably like 2.5 years ago now, and like that was the whole reason. I was like, I need something like keep me accountable.
When there's other people that know.
Right.
Like when you say you're going to do something to this group of people, you kind of got to do it.
Right. Now that you've said it, or else you kind of look a little silly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so cool. So when you have gone through this journey, like, have you noticed that I was actually podcasting with Cormac yesterday.
Oh yeah. I love Cormac.
We were talking about how like physical health and mental health definitely have this correlation. Like, did you notice that in your journey, and like what was that?
100%.
Tell me about that.
I had issues with depression kind of on and off for all of high school. And there's a chicken or egg argument that could be done there. Like, was I super low because I was out of shape, or was I out of shape because my mental health was struggling? Right. I don't know, but either way, it was part of having difficulty starting the journey is a mental health thing. You kind of you got to get right mentally before you can get right physically, but then they both kind of start to fall in line together. I know that if you've ever read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful, have you read it?
I love that guy.
Yeah.
I haven't read the book, but I had a class where my professor like went through all the habits.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly which habit it is, but one of the habits talks about different like dimensions of well-being, and there's like social, physical, spiritual, and emotional, I think. And although I can't quite remember, it's been a little while since I've read the book, so I can't remember how he talked about the relationships between those dimensions. But in the little book club at UREC that we were doing, and we were talking about it, I remember I shared and some other people shared the same sentiment that certain dimensions, the dimensions aren't separate. Like for me, if my physical dimension isn't being taken care of, if I'm not going to the gym regularly, if I'm not eating right, if I'm not sleeping right, every other dimension falters.
Yep.
And so for me, it definitely feels like physically right comes first, and then everything else will follow, and then just serve to keep me physically right. You know, skipping the gym for more than a few days kills me.
Yeah, because it's easy to like fall back into that
It
cycle.
is. Yeah.
Have you found, like, I know when I first started going to the gym, there was a period of time where, like, if I skipped a workout or I skipped, like, went off my meal for a day or something, like, I was freaking out. And it was, like, not good. But I feel like now I've kind of gotten to a point where, like, it's okay if I go out and, like, eat out and have a couple drinks. And it's okay if I decide to take a rest day that wasn't planned and I don't, like, freak about it. Have you found a similar balance?
Very recently.
Yeah.
I have it built into my split that I take a rest day where I need it. So if it's Wednesday and I can barely walk, I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna chill today, and that's fine. And I kind of have to adjust my eating a little bit, but that's fine too. As far as like going out and drinking and stuff goes, it's difficult to keep that in balance, I will admit, because I try to wake up at 5 a.m. every weekday. And so it's hard to have a social life when you're in bed by 8:30.
Right.
Because sleep is very important. If I don't
agree.
get like 7 to 9 hours, I feel awful.
I need my hours.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like a grandma, but I don't care.
I understand.
Will go to bed early. I don't.
Yeah, you turn on a fan so you can't hear your roommates and go to sleep. But that's very important to me. And when people ask me about, I'm not trying to toot my horn, but people ask for advice sometimes. And the biggest thing I tell them is that I can give you all the advice I want, but until you really want it, nothing's going to happen. Like you can go into something in complete darkness, never having heard a piece of advice in a day in your life. But if you want it bad enough, it's going to happen. And so it's about like prioritizing the different things that are important to you,
Totally.
and there's figuring out what hours in the day are going to go to what. So if, getting really strong is super important to you and you really, really want it, you're probably going to take some hours from your social life and put them there. And if your social life is more important to you, you're going to have to, reallocate some hours from maybe school or the gym to do that. And so for me, I definitely take a lot of that time, and it's put into like cooking good food and going to the gym and getting sleep and stuff. So finding that balance is still something I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because again, it's hard to go out when you're in bed at 8:30 every night.
How are you like working towards that balance? Because a big thing for me is like the balance looks different for everybody, because we all have like different responsibilities and different goals. So the way, like you said, the way you allocate your time is going to be different. Like how are you starting to find the balance and learn how to allocate your time, balancing everything you do with gym, OPSU, school, social life, self-care, cooking?
Yeah. What I found success with is sucking it up and allowing myself to sleep in on the weekends. And sleeping in is still like between 7 and 8 a.m. And so kind of just being like, it's fine. No one's gonna think you're soft for sleeping in until like 7 to 8 a.m. Most people still aren't waking up that early.
Yeah.
And then allowing myself at least one night on a weekend to go out, whatever that might look like. I choose not to drink most of the time, just because it's not that I don't like it that much, but at this point in like my college life and the journey of fitness and stuff, it's just not as important to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but sometimes when you take a step back and ask yourself, why am I drinking? Sometimes the motivations aren't super good.
Right.
It's like, well, that's not really a good enough reason to be doing that.
Totally.
So that was definitely a big thing, but I do allow myself to indulge occasionally. But yeah, like one night a week, maybe 2 nights if I find something going on. But I've never really been a party animal. So usually one night will knock me out. If it's on a Friday and someone invites me to something on Saturday, I'm like, I'm okay. And that's usually pretty good.
Yeah, I feel that. You have to listen to that like social battery. Because
Yeah.
then I feel like I think there's a big difference between knowing that you need to have that social interaction. So being like, okay, like maybe I should go out tonight, even though like I kind of would rather lay in my bed, and being like, no, like I really need this rest. I'm tired. Let's stay in.
And it takes experience.
Yeah, and you have to totally forget about FOMO.
Yeah. The freshman year in college is super big on figuring out like, when do I actually want to go out? When is it good for me? When is it not good for me? Listening to your brain sometimes, listening to your body especially.
It takes so much practice. Freshman year, I was like, okay, like we can party like half the week here. Like, why would I not do that? And I was going out all the time. And now I'm like,
it's draining.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And then you finally hit a point. It's like, shit, like I can't do this anymore. Like, I don't know if I'm old.
The prioritization of things comes in. It's like, is this a good use of my time?
Totally. Because our time is limited. And you really have to choose like things to fill it that make you feel good. Yeah.
It's a good experience though, for most freshmen to just kind of like you're away from your parents for the first time in your life. Most people will just kind of
go a little too far.
And it's important to have that experience of knowing what too far looks like for you.
Especially earlier than later.
Yeah.
Because the earlier you learn it, I think then you're able to fix it and develop healthier habits sooner.
The consequences aren't as dire if you choose to get drunk 4 nights in a week during your freshman year as opposed to your senior year.
Right.
So,
yeah. So you bring up freshman year, which is perfect because that leads me into my last thing that I have for you. If you could go back to freshman year and give freshman year Ethan a piece of advice that you know now, what would you tell him?
It's a very, very good question.
So many things, right?
Yeah.
So many things.
Yeah. Man.
I like this. I've totally stumped you and I like it. Take your time though. You can state multiple if you can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
The question is really, really difficult because I feel that everything happens for a reason. A lot of people might not see it that way, or they might have a different reason that they think everything happens for a reason. For some people it might just be that the universe does it. For some people, for me, it's God. So I wouldn't change anything. I am who I am because of everything that I went through, every last little experience and thought that I had. But I definitely feel like it would have been good to start learning earlier how to be okay with being alone.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
And a big thing that I've learned is that like alone doesn't always mean alone.
Right.
Most of the time it's not. We need people. We're social creatures. I definitely mean alone in terms of like relationships, because objectively looking back then and right now, I have such an insane system of support. And, the past year that I spent at UREC, I had so many people that made me better in ways I never would have expected. Like, do you remember Mike Johnson, the GA?
Yes.
Yeah, he's the reason that I can call myself a runner now, which I never would have expected.
Right.
He was a big mentor and role model in my journey to become a runner. And, Kelsey and Holly are the reasons that I'm an op soup right now. And so just all these people coming together, whether they know it or not, made me who I am. And it's all these people, and I wasn't alone in that sense. I have incredible friends, and even people who aren't necessarily my friends have impacted me in some way. But being all right with not like having a romantic partner,
Right.
that was big, and
that's big for me too. Yeah.
yeah, definitely feel like some of the motivation to do like to become healthier was unfortunately towards that goal. And the end result was the same. I still got better, but for the wrong reason, I feel.
That was my same trigger too
Yeah.
as well. At the end of the day, like I really started because of a relationship, and then like kept going because of the end of a relationship. So it was like,
and eventually it probably just became for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was crazy that it actually took something like an event like that to trigger that change. But I really do think, like you said, everything happens for a reason, and like who knows where I would be had things not worked out the way that they did. But also what you're saying about having a strong support system, we talked about that before. It's huge. How do you like find the right people to be in your circle? How do you know someone's like truly in your corner?
On a very basic level, if I feel I would invite someone to my wedding, that's who I want to be in my circle.
Nice.
And going a little deeper, I ask myself a lot, like, does this person, and obviously it's always mutual, it's supposed to be give and take, but does this person add to my life? Do they make me better? Am I gaining something positive from them, or are they just there? And there are a lot of people who are just there that for better or for worse, I don't have much of a desire to talk to when I leave here.
Right.
But then there are definitely some people that I have found lifelong friends in, even people who I might not talk to for months. I know that if they need me or if I need them, it's not even going to be a question.
Right. It's not even about the needing to talk every day, but it's that deeper connection that you're able to build and like rely on someone.
And remembering all that you and that person went through as well. There's even people who I wouldn't necessarily consider, I'm like close to, that I keep in my circle, because even though I'm not super well bonded with them, I feel like they continue to add to my life and make me better.
Totally. That's how I feel about you. We're not like
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we're not best friends. We don't talk all the time, but like I have you on this podcast for a reason. You're adding so much value right now. And I love like the mindset that you're in. So I feel like surrounding yourself with like-minded people, even if they're not your best friend in the room, like it's huge to moving you closer to your goal and helping them also like move closer, because the perspective is huge. Yeah.
Having these kinds of conversations, not always on a podcast, but just in general, and hearing about other people's experiences, it's not life-changing by any means, but every time you have a conversation, maybe you pick up a little tidbit, and then you get all these little tidbits, and now they're a part of your life.
Right.
And all these people have made you just a little bit better in all these different ways. And it's been a big part of my life.
Yeah. It's huge. There's always learning to be done, especially from other people. Thanks for sharing with us today. I've learned so much about you.
Very exciting.
Well, thank you again for being here, and everyone else, thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next time on In Moderation. Bye.
We good?
Yeah, what do you think?
That was fun.
So fun.
That's a lot of fun.